Hello to everyone who is joining us from all around the world tonight. Welcome to the LLM webinar series with Education USA. We're so excited to have you all here with us. So thank you to everyone who has joined. I just wanted to give a quick introduction on Education USA if you haven't heard of it before. So Education USA is a program of the US Department of State, and essentially it provides advising centers in countries all around the world for students interested in studying in the US, specifically programs related to bachelor's degrees, master's, doctorates, as well as shorter programs in intensive English. So there's currently centers in more than 180 countries in the world, and we have more than 400 centers in total. So if you haven't already, we strongly recommend you get in contact with your Education USA center in your country. And they are a great resource to help you out with any pieces of the application process, such as looking for universities, finding financial aid options, as well as preparing the application materials. So I really do hope that you head to the Education USA website if you want to find your Education USA advisor in your area. And at the end of this presentation, we will be sending links to breakout rooms with each of the universities that are participating today. So at the end, I'll be sharing those, and make sure you stick around and join the presentation or presentations of the university that you want to hear a little bit more about, so you can answer those specific questions. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. I just want to do a quick introduction of our presentation today. So today we will be talking about the differences between a JD and an LLM program, and the practical work experience you can secure during the LLM program. For anyone that was unaware, this webinar series will be continuing throughout the rest of the week, and as well as next week, we will repeat all of the webinars with different universities. So we really encourage you to join more presentations so that you can hear different perspectives on these truly important topics if you're interested in studying an LLM or a Master in Law in the US. So today with us, we have some great universities. We have California Western University, Loyola University at Chicago, Ohio State University, UCLA, the University of Colorado, and Suffolk University. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. I'm going to pass it off to California Western to start our presentation today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this opportunity to present some of our programs. Today we're going to start with a couple of questions that my colleagues and I will participate in answering, and hopefully get all the answers to you that you might need. And I would just like to introduce what we're going to be doing. First of all, we are going to be answering several questions. Do I need to have studied law to apply to an LLM? And that will be presented by my colleague Insa Blank from Loyola University. And we will also be dealing with the question of, should I get a Juris Doctor if I already earned a law degree in my home country? And along with that, we will be looking at the different timelines, a timeline for doing an LLM program by Tiffany Parnell from UCLA, timeline for a JD program that Tiffany will also be addressing. We will also be looking at other topics such as clinical experience courses with Jimmy Ilsing from University of Colorado, doing externships possibly by Laura Fernandez Alvarez from the Ohio State University, extracurricular activities by Bridget Sandusky from Suffolk, and see some optional practical training that INSA will be addressing at the very end. I'm going to share the first presentation so we can get started in answering some of those questions. Please let us know if, along the presentations, if you have any questions about the topics that we are addressing. And we will also, as was mentioned, be dealing with questions to each one of the particular programs. So I'm going to share the first presentation. I hope that this is one that you can see. Insa and I will be talking about the first two questions that we just mentioned. Do I need to have applied, to have studied law to apply to an LLM program in the United States? And a quick answer is yes. And as many of you know, in other countries, the study of law is an undergraduate program. But in the US, the study of law is traditionally a graduate program, and particularly the programs that we are here to discuss today, an LLM program. So most of the time, what is done in the US is that you go through a high school and then apply to a bachelor's degree at a university. And after that bachelor's degree, then you go on to study a full Juris Doctor. That would be for a US attorney. However, an LLM is a little different because it is directed to students that have studied law in another country. So those students already have a bachelor's degree, and they would come to the United States or study online a master's in law. And if you would like to study law, there are also other options for those that did not study law in their home countries. And that can be a master's of jurisprudence or a master's of the study of law. Either they're called MJ or an MSL for the most part. If you are looking to study law in the United States and you have not completed a law program in your home country, those may be some options that you can explore if you do not have that degree, that law degree now. I'm going to pass the microphone over to Insa so that she can continue with the second question. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing now, or do you want me
to? It's okay, Karen, you can just leave it. Yeah, okay. Perfect, yes, thank you. Welcome everybody. I'm Insa Blanca from Loyola Chicago. And this topic that I'm going to talk about is a question that I get a lot. Should I get a JD, or should I enroll in a JD program, the full 3-year JD program, if I already earned a law degree in my home country? And the quick answer to this question is yes, it depends. Obviously, we're lawyers, right? That's our favorite answer. So here are some of the considerations that I ask students to consider before they commit to a full JD program. So the first issue is the licensing question. If you want to be licensed as an attorney in the United States, and this is a topic that is very complicated, and somebody else will talk about that, but in some states you must have a JD degree to either take the bar exam or be licensed there, or to take your score from one state to another. So if you know which state you want to live in and practice in, then this might be an important factor to have the JD instead of the LLM. And then of course, if you study the full law program with all the core US law classes that are tested on the bar exam, that increases your chances to actually pass the test as well. Another question is what do you want to do with the degree? What's your career goal? Because having a JD may significantly improve your opportunities compared to the LLM. So one of those questions would be, or considerations, do you plan to stay in the United States long term? Do you want to live here? Basically, is something that I decided to do. So I bit the bullet and enrolled in a JD program. Or if you want to return to your home country or maybe another country, the question is, does it really make a difference for the employers, the potential employers, whether you have an LLM degree or a JD degree? So I hear that in China, for example, there are so many students who have an LLM degree that in order to distinguish yourself, you really should have a JD. In most other countries, as far as I'm aware, that's not the case. And then another question is, if you know already in which field you want to work, and that's quite specialized, an LLM might help you more because it indicates that you really focused on this field and you don't really need all the US law courses like civil procedure or criminal procedure or family law, which you would study in the JD program. So those are things that you want to consider. The next big point is the investment of time and money. Obviously, the JD is 3 years and will cost you significantly more in terms of money, but also in terms of time. I mean, you already have a law degree, and this would add an additional 2 years. And you also need to have a good stamina to do that. I have students in my school who added a 2-year JD program, and it was pretty hard for them, for some of them, to actually go through all those courses for 2 more years. And then finally, obviously, when academia, yes, you will learn a lot more. If you really plan to practice here, it might make sense to get a little bit more than just those, let's say, 10 courses or 8 courses that you can cover in the LLM degree. So if you're really interested in the depths of legal education, then this is a strong factor you should consider. So as I mentioned, the JD is 3 years. The various schools that offer LLM programs have different approaches to offering JD programs to foreign lawyers. Some schools have a 2-year JD. And for that, as far as I know, most schools ask you to submit the law school admission test. That means you would apply like a regular American college grad and need to take that test. And I can say that for foreigners like me, language and speed and etc. is an issue we typically don't do as well as we could if it were our language or if it were used to multiple choice. So that's one consideration. And then you need to have a good timing because most applications are due in way before April, some in December, and you must have taken the test before that. Other schools allow the LLM graduates to transfer to the JD program. That's what we do. So we do not ask for a law school admission test score, but we base the decision on the grades that you got in our LLM degree. And then you would add 2 more years, and then you have, in our case, both the LLM and the JD. In other schools, it would be just the JD, or I mean, you really need to do the research to see how that is handled. Apart from that, there's another degree that you can put on top of the LLM. That's the SJD or JSD, depending on the school. And that really is for students who want to go into academia. This is a dissertation degree. You do research and write and work with faculty very closely to produce a dissertation in typically 3 to 5 years. So obviously I cannot give you a clear answer, but here are the things you need to consider and make up your mind. And that concludes our topic.
Great, so I think I'm up next. My name is Tiffany Parnell. I am from the University of California, Los Angeles. I hope you all can see can you see my screen? Awesome. So ideally, the goal of my section is to give you a sense of the timeline, the differences that you need to take into account between an LLM and a JD, and really I want to give you some consideration. So you've already heard from my colleagues that the timeline for a JD is typically 3 years. The timeline for an LLM is typically 1 year or 9 months. I want to give you some considerations to think about because the length of program is somewhat of a kind of personal preference depending upon where you are in your career, what your goals are. And so these are just some of the factors to think about. The main takeaway also should be to speak directly with representatives from the schools in which you are interested in applying, because every school has different procedures, policies, and offerings, and that I think will make a big difference in your understanding of what is the best fit for you. So I'm going to go through some of these considerations, and hopefully this will give you a clearer picture of things to think about and give you a frame of reference from which to move forward in your conversations. So full-time versus part-time, that typically is something that's available in both degree programs. So you can do a full-time LLM, you can do a part-time LLM, not always at the same institution, but at many schools. And likewise with JD programs, there are many that offer both full-time and part-time options. Full-time tends to mean you're doing kind of the standard process of the 1-year LLM or the 3-year JD, whereas with part-time, that might mean that instead of taking classes during regular business hours, you are, going during evenings or weekends, or you're doing some combination of the traditional method and an alternative method that might fit better for those who have other obligations or have work commitments. And then the traditional versus executive or professional is something that we kind of use the traditional as the standard or the norm. So LLM and JD, they both have kind of the traditional 1 year for LLM or 3 year for JD format. But there is an option of doing executive or professional tracks in certain cases with an LLM as well as with a JD. That is less rare, I believe, or less common with a JD than it is for an LLM, but they do exist. And that also could mean that the actual format of when the classes are taught is going to vary dramatically because there may be an expectation that you are a working professional. And so you may not be able to take significant time off to do kind of full consecutive back-to-back coursework from, say, a fall to a spring. So for an LLM, you do an executive program, that might mean that you're doing 2 consecutive summers of coursework. Similarly, if you are in another institution trying to do a JD program on a professional or executive track, that might mean that the actual outcome for graduates is different. And by that I mean, for those who are pursuing professional JD programs, because they are less common, that might mean that they have a goal of training those who are not necessarily looking to practice as attorneys or to become licensed barred attorneys. So that might mean then that the actual curricular structure is a little bit different. Bar eligibility requirements might be different, and so that can change the length of time. So that's something to discuss with the school directly. Dual or joint degree options exist again across both degree programs. So with certain institutions, LLM programs may have partnerships with other departments in their university or with international institutions abroad. So you may be able to earn an LLM and, say, a master's in international relations from another institution outside of the US for kind of a condensed period of time. It'll be longer than the 1 year that you typically would do in a traditional LLM, but it would be faster than aggregating both pieces together. Similar for JD programs, you can combine programs where you could do a JD, which is again a typical 3 years, with, say, an MBA, and oftentimes these are usually within the university, but there may be some partnerships again with schools outside of the country or abroad. And so it really depends on if you're looking for an interdisciplinary approach to engaging both your academic interests and your professional goals, and how much time you have, because dual degree programs for an LLM could be 2 years, dual degree programs for a JD could be 4 years, or like at UCLA, we have a joint JD PhD program, so that's closer to like 7 years. So it really will depend on what you're interested in doing. So keep that in mind if you're looking for an interdisciplinary approach. Residential, meaning in person versus distance or hybrid or online, or some combination of online and in person, can affect how frequently you need to engage either in person on campus or online. And some hybrid courses may lengthen the amount of time that it takes to earn the degree in order to be more flexible, so that those who are working professionals or who have altered schedules can achieve their goal while completing other tasks at the same time. And then credit requirements have to do with just the minimum requirement to graduate. So with an LLM, usually that range is between 20 units and 30 units, depending upon the school. Many schools will be around 24 units to earn the degree, and that has to do partially with bar eligibility requirements. With the JD side, usually that number is about 83 as a minimum, which is like an American Bar Association requirement, but they can go up to like 90 plus units. So that just gives you a sense of how many terms you're likely going to have to complete, knowing the number of units that are expected for a graduate. And it's a good question to ask the folks that are at the schools in which you're interested in. And then the academic calendar. So basically when you want to start, a lot of schools have a lot of flexibility across both programs. So for LLMs, many programs begin in August or in the fall, which could be a September, but for a number of schools, they can offer a spring or January start. They can offer a summer start. And there are some programs that I believe are less common, but still available for the JD side as well, where you can begin in the spring versus in the fall. So what works best for you is something that should inform your conversation with the schools you're interested in. And then the last note that I want to leave you with is just thinking about if there's additional programming that you want to participate in, or if there's expectations about orientation. More so, I'm in the LLM world, so I'm familiar with a number of offerings that LLM programs tend to provide, whereas JDs, I think there are some potential for add-ons, but it's not as common. With LLMs, you'll have the option of potentially doing like a legal English course, which can be, say, 2 weeks to a month in advance of the start of the program. So that will change when you're starting your coursework. And then there's other cases where there is no additional add-on, or there's no separate orientation separate from the regular course of study that they would have. It's just embedded into the academic calendar. So that's just something to think about if you wanted to, say, like have an additional certificate. Some programs offer that, and so you would need to speak with them directly about whether that can be fulfilled within the typical parameters of the program or as an add-on. So I hope that gives you some things to think about and to take forward with you in conversations with the schools that you're interested in. And I'll pass it off to my colleague, JJ.
Hi, everybody. Just one sec while I get my screen shared. I think we're going to change gears a little bit now and focus in on experiential education. And I will be presenting on clinical opportunities, clinical classes at U.S. law schools. And then my colleagues from Ohio State University will talk about externships. Will it let me share screen? Yes. Okay. And wrong share. Hold on one second. Apologies. And see how this goes, playing with Adobe a little bit. Like I said, my name is JJ Ilsing. I am the Director of International Programs here at the University of Colorado Law School, which is a part of the greater University of Colorado, or CU Boulder campus. Again, as I stated, we will talk briefly about clinical education, which really is more or less an opportunity to engage in experiential education. What does that mean? Generally, you get to attend formal classes, work closely with law school faculty and a relatively small class size of your JD and LLM peers to earn academic credit, all the while gaining practical experience while you work with real clients on real cases and real projects. Why would you consider enrolling in a law school, or I'm sorry, in a clinic? Again, you get real practical experience. A lot of students appreciate the opportunity to interact with clients and develop soft skills. It definitely adds a bit of depth to your legal studies. It kind of juxtaposes theoretical and practical learning. For a number of students, I think that they appreciate the networks that they develop within a very tight-knit, I think, class or clinic. Clinics are not going to be large at Colorado Law. Our clinic sizes range anywhere from 6 to about 15 to 20 students. You can see this is like 2016 on the photo I have up, and that would be our environmental law clinic who worked with clients in regards to the Keystone Pipeline or Dakota Access Pipeline up in Northern America. It's a big deal back in 2016, kind of a big deal still now. Again, you get to develop real meaningful relationships, not just with your classmates, but with your supervising attorney and faculty member. You get to engage with meaningful work and really kind of work to achieve tangible outcomes. Well, that one did not want to pop up. In terms of the types of clinics that you can potentially enroll in, that's going to vary from law school to law school. See if I can back up a little bit. It still doesn't like my images. In terms of Colorado law and what we have to offer, our clinics include criminal justice, a tech law and policy clinic, American Indian law and policy clinic. This image is not, no, doesn't like any of my stuff apparently. So we'll back up a little bit. To give you an idea kind of the work that you're doing right here with our criminal justice clinic, for example, you could be working kind of as a public defender, again, under the supervision of your supervising attorney, working on misdemeanor cases and visiting local courts. If you're working with someone like, or within the context of our environmental law clinic, for example, you could be representing clients on public land disputes. I know that our environmental law clinic worked recently to submit appeals to the current presidential administration to reclassify lands within the state of Colorado and Utah as public lands. Within a tech law and policy clinic, you could be working on something like patents. We also offer a entrepreneurial law clinic where you'd be working with our local entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial community here in Colorado, Boulder, and the greater Denver campus. We'll continue to move forward and see if it still doesn't like my slides, does not like my slides, that's fine. It likes my final slide, my questions, comments, and concerns slides. I'll back up here a little bit and see if I can reload. Yeah, so anyway, so clinics provide a great opportunity, obviously, to get real experience, to develop really good relationships with law school faculty. If you're considering, when thinking about the previous presentations and the differences between a JD program and an LLM program, bear in mind if you're in a JD program, you're there for 3 years. So you're gonna have multiple shots at enrolling in a clinic. Clinics can be either 1 semester long, they could be 2 semesters long. If they're 2 semesters long, basically as a JD, within your 2nd and 3rd year, you could enroll in a clinic. So you'll basically have 4 shots at enrolling in a clinic. If a clinic is a year long, you may want to check into that. You'll have 2 shots. LLMs, you have a much more narrow time frame to get in a clinic. Obviously, if we're talking about a year-long clinic, that's going to encompass your entire LLM program. Or you could potentially enroll in a semester-long clinic, depending upon what's available at your law school. If you're considering clinics, or if you're considering an LLM program in a U.S. law school, definitely look and see what clinics are available, see how well they align with specialized programs within each U.S. law school and kind of what they have to offer. And then once you've narrowed down that particular field of schools, you're going to want to get a bit granular, I think, because some law schools will offer access to some LLMs, access to some clinics. Some law schools may not offer LLMs access to some clinics. The policy is going to vary widely from law school to law school and then within each law school. So if you're very focused on one particular type of clinic, one particular type of experiential education opportunity, you're going to want to dig deep and see what's actually available to LLM students. And then more specifically, what are the odds of accessing a clinic? Again, I referenced clinics are small. They're 6 to 15, maybe 20 students at most. They're high demand. Our JD's love clinics, our LLM's love clinics as well. So definitely ask those important questions. And that being said, if anyone has any questions about clinics, experiential education, or anything more general, feel free to visit my Zoom room after the presentation. Thanks so much, and I will pass off to my colleagues at Ohio State University.
Thank you, JJ. Thanks for that. I think my colleague Megan is sharing our screens, and so I'm going to introduce myself quickly and introduce our topic and then pass on the presentation to Megan. So my name is Laura Fernandez Alvarez, and I am the Assistant Dean for International Programs and Grad Programs at Ohio State, the Ohio State University. And we will have a few minutes today to talk to you about externships, which is another form of experiential learning, kind of going along what JJ was talking about in the clinic setting. And basically, an externship is really an unpaid experience that you can have in law school, where you are set up to work in a legal setting outside of the law school in exchange for academic credit. So that is how it's different than an internship. You are having a connection usually with the law school. There is a certain supervision that happens to make sure you're getting good quality experience. The school usually helps you with the placement, so you apply and get help to get a placement in your local law school, depending on partnerships. At Ohio State, we have, I think, about 50 partnerships with local partners. And I'm going to have Megan talk more about this. Megan Avellana, my colleague, she's our assistant director, and she's our person in charge of professional development. And we really are very proud of our externship program because it's completely open to our LLMs and they take advantage every year. So I don't want to talk too much about externships, but I wanted to introduce myself because I am here and to tell you that I'm happy to answer questions in our Zoom room at 7 o'clock. I am originally from Venezuela, so I'm happy to answer questions you may have in Spanish or English about any part of the LLM application experience, regardless of what programs you're looking at and what your goals are. I'm happy to provide some assistance. So Megan and I will be at 7 o'clock in our Zoom link, and I thank you for your time, and I'm gonna pass it on to my colleague Megan Avellana. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So yeah, like Laura said, externships, depending on what university or law school you attend, they'll have different opportunities available for LLM students. Some programs may just have certain placements for LLMs, while others may have it more open and more availability for LLM students. Part of that depends on the location of the law school and what is available in that particular city and what relationships the law school has. For example, in our city of Columbus, Ohio, we have a lot of different nonprofit organizations. We have different court systems, and we're the state capital, so we also have the state legislature and some federal and state opportunities. So these are examples of externship placements from our particular program. So they vary depending, like I said, on what is available for LLM students and also what kind of relationships the law school may have locally, or now that there's a lot of things going on virtually, there may also be some additional opportunities that there weren't before. So for our particular program, some examples of placements that LLM students are able to work at include the Supreme Court of Ohio, specifically the dispute resolution section is an option. The Ohio Public Defender. We have a few different sections that students can work in, and specifically we've had LLM students work with the death penalty section. The Economic Community Development Institute. And then on campus, the Ohio State University Office of Compliance and Integrity, Student Legal Services, the Ohio Environmental Council, and the Columbus City Attorney's Office. So these are just some examples. Students can also find their own placements if they built a relationship with someone, through networking, or they have an idea of another, nonprofit or some type of government agency that they'd like to work for. So externs, there's a lot of different types of tasks and work that externs do. So, externs can do things like draft memorandums and briefs. They can attend hearings, they can communicate with clients, assist attorneys to help prepare for trial. They can revise contracts. There's lots of different types of tasks and projects that externs get to work on. And a lot of times for LLM students, it's really exciting because you get to be supervised by an attorney, a licensed attorney. So you're getting an idea of what US work culture is like, and also getting to do some hands-on work as well. So like I mentioned, just for some programs, you will be able to do externships on your campus, which is really, nice and convenient for an LLM student. So with Ohio State University, since we are the third largest university in the US, we have a lot of opportunities on the campus. So a couple of the ones I mentioned, like student legal services and the Office of Compliance and Integrity. Those are opportunities that are located right on a campus. So how you get an externship, it'll vary by program. So, you know, a lot of, if there's already, you know, a formal program set up, a lot of times you will just simply apply through your university's career services office. So for our particular program, students work one-on-one with me to, you know, work on their resumes, writing sample, the application itself, and any other documents that might be needed, like a cover letter. So students then apply directly with our career services office through the public interest externship program application. And we have, for our program, we have about 40 students per semester that are placed in these opportunities. So that's both for LLMs and JDs. So for our particular program, we have the public externship program open equally to LLMs and JDs. And we've had over the years this program has been open, we've had a 100% placement rate. So LLM students have been able to take advantage of these opportunities. So as Laura had mentioned, students are earning academic credit. It's a full semester or even a summer experience. It's an unpaid experience, but you yourself are not paying anything additional to participate. So it's a really nice way to get some hands-on work experience, to network, which can help build connections and lead you to, you know, potentially have an opportunity to work during optional practical training or OPT. So there's a lot of benefits to the program. If you guys have any questions, here is our email address. And of course, we're also available to chat in our Zoom room after this. And then if you guys are interested in learning a little bit more about what an externship program looks like, you can scan this QR code and it'll help you at the website. So now that's all that we have on externships. So I will pass it over to our colleague, Bridget.
Great. Thank you very much, Megan. Let me just, okay. I don't know why I'm getting, here we go. So good evening, my name is Bridget Sandusky and I am the Assistant Dean of Graduate Law Programs at Suffolk University, and that's right in downtown Boston, Massachusetts. And this evening, I'm going to speak with you about extracurricular activities and how you might better use them to your advantage during your LLM program. So first, I thought it would be helpful for you to understand really what are extracurricular activities. It really essentially are any academic activities that are performed by students that are outside the realm of your normal curriculum. So anything that's really not connected to the coursework that you're doing during your degree. So they may be activities that are on campus, they may be activities that are off campus, generally completely voluntary, but I think all of my colleagues here would also agree that we routinely and very actively encourage our LLM students to pursue extracurricular activities because they're going to provide you a much richer and deeper experience during your stay in the United States. So one of the options will be student-run activities. Every law school is going to have a wide variety of activities and associations that are run all by their own students. At Suffolk, we have over 30 active student law associations, so ranging from the international law students to sports law, business law, women's law student association. And the wonderful aspect about these groups are that students are meeting JD students and LLM students are meeting new students. You're really building both your internet, you're connecting with each other within your university setting, but the point of having these types of activities is really they'll have lectures, so they'll have receptions, and they invite alumni who are speakers at these events. Also provide you another opportunity to really build your network outside of your law school. The other thing that you should really be thinking about are not just activities, extracurricular activities that you would find within your law school, but also with the outside of your law school. So I think one of the key components for any student really considering an LLM program, you have a lot of factors to consider. One will be location. Are you interested in attending a university, a law school that's located in a rural area or a suburban area or in a downtown location, such as Suffolk? So there will be, every state in the United States will have their own bar association. So we have the Massachusetts Bar Association, and then larger cities are going to have their own bar associations. So we have the Boston Bar Association. And Suffolk, we provide free membership for all of our LLM and JD students to both of those associations. And because of our downtown location, they're really convenient ways for students to be involved. Both of the associations will have so the other ones are write-on competitions that don't square grade during the academic calendar year for an LLM student to write on for those, but the Journal of High Technology will review written submissions from LLM students at any point in the academic year. So if a student is looking for that experience to be writing and the other opportunity for you to consider will be the events that your school puts on. So either through their professional and career development office, maybe through their dean of students office, through a diversity and inclusion office. And so I took just a little snapshot of events from yesterday, Tuesday, to next Tuesday. So tips for networking in a virtual world. There's the Boston Bar Association webinar, Careers in International Law. We're offering a pro bono fair so students can learn about the various different pro bono activities and experiences that are available for students to pursue, as well as this is a student-run criminal law association of careers in criminal law, in which we have 5 of our alums, a judge, a prosecutor, a public defender, and they're going to come and tell students, virtually of course, about their experiences. And so how did they get into the position where they are? And these are all just different avenues for you to develop and deepen the networks that you already will be doing if you're attending and going to student events, activities inside and outside of the schools. The last option would be a moot court option. So these will be oral advocacy competitions. Typically, there would be a written brief and then oral arguments attached with these competitions. Internationally, many of you might be familiar with JESSUP or the VIS international competitions. But for our LLM students, the one that they could be most involved in is the intrascholastic or competitions that we have within the law school itself. And so I've also had LLM students participate as witnesses, as bailiffs. So if you have had experiences with moot court competitions, and that's something that you want to continue, some law schools will allow you the opportunity to join in the various different competitions. And lastly, I hope that you will join me in my Zoom room after this presentation. If you would like to schedule a one-on-one meeting with me, I'm happy to do that in another time as well. And you can do that through the You Can Book Me. Thank you very much. And I'm going to stop my sharing and pass it on to my colleagues to talk about OPT.
Unmuting helps. So this is the last topic. And this is also a question that we get a lot. Can we stay on and work? So yes, you can. And many of the students actually really enjoy this because it is a great opportunity to hone your skills that you learned in law school in the real legal world and see the differences. And learn these soft skills and all the other skills that you need to survive in the American legal professional world. So as you know, you will have, most of you will have an F1 student visa for the duration of your time at the law school. Once you graduate, you typically will have a 60-day grace period that you can remain in the country. Some students will use this to prepare for the bar exam and then take the bar exam right after the conclusion of their legal studies. Many students who want to work will apply for the OPT. That's an optional practical training, OPT. It's a benefit of your F1 visa. It's not a new visa. It allows you to work in a legal setting. So that's one of the requirements. You can work only in your field of study, and that would be law. Now that's broadly understood. You can work in an in-house department, you can clerk in a court, you can clerk in a law firm, you can work in the legal division of a public interest group, or you could work in the law library. Anything that's related to law will be accepted. You may work either part-time or full-time. Part-time is defined as 20 hours or less. It can be a paid or an unpaid job. Hopefully it will be paid, but it doesn't have to be. And the last requirement for eligibility is that you must have studied full-time for at least one full academic year, and you must be physically present in the United States. I'm mentioning that because that's a caveat about online studies. If you study online because of Corona, because the law schools are closed and you don't have a visa, or for whatever reason, there are more students now who study online, like at Loyola, for example. You are only eligible for the OPT if you spend 2 consecutive semesters in the United States studying full-time. It's workable because for Loyola, for example, 8 credit hours already constitutes full-time. So you can do that and study for a total of 3 semesters and still be eligible if you're for 2 semesters in the United States. So you need to apply for the OPT through the international office of your university because this is part of your visa status. You do not have to have the job offer when you apply. That gives you more time to look for a job, which is another caveat. It's not necessarily easy and guaranteed that you will find a job, but this gives you a chance to spend more time in the country and look for a legal position of the sorts that would be eligible for the OPT. Can you still see my screen? Some things are popping up here.
Yes.
Oh, there we are. Sorry. Okay. So in terms of application deadline, you can apply up to 90 days before you graduate, but no later again than 60 days after graduation, and that would be your grace period. After the application, you must be employed within 90 days. As I mentioned before, if you do not get a job, then your visa expires and you have to leave the country. During the year, the 12 months, you may change jobs. You don't have to stay in the same job. But again, the total time of unemployment during the OPT period cannot exceed 90 days. Okay, so if you leave the country after you applied, but before you have the OPT status, then you cannot enter. So that's a question you need to decide that determines when you apply, and you can discuss that with your international advisor. So they must send the OPT permission to you, to your home country, so that you can get back into the United States. The OPT is the most typically chosen way to extend your visa and to work in the United States. Another sort of visa is the curricular practical training or employment authorization. This is similar, just that it applies while you are in school. As you may know or may not know, during your first year at law school, you're not allowed to work, but you can apply for curricular practical training after that when you're still in law school. And the requirement for that is that your job must be related to the established curriculum or required as part of the established curriculum. It must be actually integral to the curriculum. So under those circumstances, you may be permitted to work outside of the law school. That may be an internship or a clerkship or the likes. You must remain enrolled full-time for the whole time, and you cannot work for more than 20 hours per week. And the CPT must be renewed each semester that you have a job. In the summer, you can work full-time if you're still enrolled. So in some schools, as was mentioned, students begin in the spring. At Loyola, we enroll students in August and in January, which is called the spring semester. And then you have the summer, and this is a great way to get experience after your first year, obviously, to get practical experience, or you could work in the clinics in the summer. And that concludes all of our presentations. I would encourage you to visit all of us. It's a great opportunity for you to get a broad array of insights into the different programs. And we are, I think, all over the board, from east to west coast, small towns, rural areas, big towns, big cities. Once you have us here, this is a great way to ask all the questions that you ever wanted to ask and to find out the details from all of us. So I'm looking forward to see you in my booth. I will be joined by Sol Ferraro. She's from Argentina and graduated from our LLM degree and now works in the law school. And yes, let's see you there.
All right. Thank you so much to all of our amazing presenters today from such a wide variety of universities, sharing about LLM programs in the US and in general answering your questions on studying law in the United States. So like a few of them mentioned, we will be having breakout rooms with each university. So if you do have a university that you'd like to talk to a little bit more, feel free to check the chat box where you'll be able to find the link for each university. I do recommend that you copy and paste the whole list because you will have a bit of time that you can sort of jump around and visit more than one if you do have interest in more than one university. And if you don't have a specific interest in one university, I equally recommend that you join some of the breakout rooms and possibly you could have a more personalized conversation or get your questions answered from these amazing representatives. So thank you again so much to everyone who joined us today for the LLM webinar series. Just a reminder that these webinars will be continuing throughout the rest of this week, as well as all of next week. We'll have webinars on different topics related to LLMs. We strongly recommend you join as many as you can, and as always, contact your Education USA advisor if you have any general questions about the application process and to get some assistance there. So I will share the links once again. Make sure you copy and paste those and go ahead and start joining those breakout rooms.
Can I add something very quickly?
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
will be speaking with those interested in our Spanish program. Our LLM is 100% in Spanish online. So if you have any questions about that, that's what I'll be addressing from California Western School of Law. Thanks.
Thanks, Education USA, for organizing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.